Thank you guys so much for joining us today for today's live session on Bridging the Gap, Office Planning to Field Execution with Utility AI. All right, so we do have a action-packed webinar here today, so I'm gonna just move right along here. All right, to start, I'm Chris Garafola, head of content here at 4M. If you guys do not know who 4M is yet, I'll take the heat on that, being in the marketing department, but I'm glad you're here. And just a little bit about 4M, we are a utility AI mapping and analytics solution built for project owners, civil engineers, and general contractors during the early stages of infrastructure development. I have a rockstar crew with me today, as you saw on the last screen there. So before I drop into some housekeeping items, I want to pass the mic and have everybody introduce themselves. So why don't we start with my friend and colleague, Taylor.
Cool. Thank you, Chris. Thank you all for jumping in here today with us. I am Taylor Meerwald, based out of Austin, Texas here. I work on the business development side of 4M Analytics, and I've had the pleasure of working with DPR on both drone deploy, and we'll get into kind of that story today of the partnership with them. But I come from a background within kind of the construction technology space for the last 8 or so years. I've spent a lot of my time both within kind of the more niche utility mapping kind of niche industry that we have here with 4M Analytics, as well as more of the vertical construction project management software solution space. So have a good idea of kind of what's going on within the industry and space, just from a overall perspective. So pleasure to be here. Looking forward to it. Take it away, Andrew.
We'll pass the mic on over to Stuart.
Hey, thanks, Chris. Good morning, good afternoon. My name's Stuart Drahota. I work for DPR Construction. I sit in Orlando, Florida, and support our field technology, so drones, laser scanning, surveying teams, and also some of our VDC team members here in Florida. But excited to be here, excited to talk through some of the solutions that we've come up with and some budding partnerships with 4M and Drone Deploy. So pass it on to Andrew.
Yeah, thanks, Stuart. Real pleasure to be here. My name's Andrew Remus. I'm a customer success manager with the Drone Deploy team. Been with Drone Deploy for 6.5 years now, so been a super fun ride. My charter is to work very closely with partners like Stuart and DPR and all of our enterprise customers to make sure that they are not only happy, but seeing success and definable outcomes with our software. I'm going to talk about Drone Deploy later coming up, but we are the leading reality capture platform out there, and I'm excited to share some more information with you all today. So thanks, Chris.
Great. Thanks so much, everyone. And so just a couple housekeeping items for those who've been on these webinars before. As always, this will be recorded, so no worries if you have to hop early. I recommend that you don't. This is going to be, like I said, action-packed, lots of value on this webinar today, but you will get the on-demand recording after the session. Also, if you have any questions at all for anybody on today's session, for Andrew, Taylor, Stuart, or I, drop them in the Q&A below. We'll try our best to get to as many as we can at the end of the session. So going into the agenda, we'll be covering, first and foremost, a deep dive into the impact of traditional planning on field teams and project timelines. DPR and Stuart will then share how they use 4M and Drone Deploy to manage and monitor utilities throughout the entire construction lifecycle. We'll then dive into a quick demo of the combined power of 4M and Drone Deploy. And then we'll highlight our current promotion, which you see on screen there, which is 3 free foundation utility maps to help you guys get started. And then finally, like I said, we'll close up with some Q&A. All right, so to kick things off, let's dive into some real-world examples that highlight the current challenges that you guys encounter with utilities during infrastructure development. So understanding these challenges is always the first step to recognizing the need for change in the first place, and why traditional methods that we have been using up to this point have failed or are no longer sufficient. So some of you guys might be aware of this one. This happened earlier this year, a massive water main strike in Fort Worth. 33-inch water main was struck by an AT&T contractor during directional boring, and there was significant damage. And I know we always talk about utility strikes on the impact that it has on projects, but as you can see here, there's greater impacts, intangible impacts and costs that these strikes have on our communities. And as you can see in the bottom here, over 200,000 utility strikes a year. This is from the Common Ground Alliance. This was in 2022. I can only imagine this number is expanding because there's more and more stuff going underground every single day. It's only getting more complex under there. And the cost of utility strikes, approximately $30 billion annually. And again, this is probably a soft number here because there's a lot of this impact that you can't even measure or quantify that's happening from utility strikes outside of the effects and impacts that's having on on projects. And in this example specifically, this could have all been avoided if AT&T had faster, earlier access to reliable utility data. They could have redesigned or relocated this utility prior. And it also could have been avoided if they were to validate this before digging themselves as well. So it's just another stark reminder of what's at stake here without fast and easy access to reliable utility data. Another example, this just happened this month. You might have heard of this one as well in Jamaica, Queens. A high pressure gas line was struck and an elementary school had to be evacuated. So again, this is just a common occurrence. These are just two examples. You guys are seeing this in the news every day. And if you're not seeing it in the news, you might be experiencing it yourself in the field. So it's obviously a really, really big problem. And it begs the question, where does this problem come from? Is it just bad luck, or is there something systematic going on here that we need to dive into? And I'd argue that it's not bad luck. So let's start by looking at what the data is telling us. So the data tells us there is a main challenge, and one of those challenges is there's a disconnect between office planning and field execution. So in other words, there's a gap between the data that we collect, or honestly don't collect, our plans, and the reality that's on the ground. It can feel like we're operating in two different worlds here, and you can see the impact. This data is from McKinsey & Company. Fragmented and inaccurate data inflates project costs up to 80%. Complex field investigations cause over 30% of project delays, and communication gaps are responsible for over 75% of delays and cost overruns due to the miscommunication and inefficiencies between the office and the field. And the big number there, as you can see, 94% of utility locating damage root causes were caused by incomplete or inaccurate subsurface utility data. So you guys are aware of the challenges. The data is saying one thing. Obviously, you guys are the experts here on the call and that are here during this live session. Stuart, you're the expert here. I'd love to get your take on just the data that's presented here and what you're seeing in terms of some of these traditional challenges. And do you think that we can future-proof America's infrastructure, continuing to do what we have up until this point in terms of planning, designing, and building for our infrastructure projects?
Yeah, I think, thanks, Chris. I think it's pretty evident that we cannot. I think you just look at these facts and figures and the digitization of data and, just simply, it comes down to two things, having the data in a consumable location and having accurate data. And, the fact that we still are, I've seen as-built recently from a project that I was working on that was, it was literally highlighted, a plan sheet highlighted, and then they took a picture of it. And it's like, that's how do we get away with that? So we're at a time when we do have, the world is continuing to connect digitally, and we've got to focus on, moving forward, collecting this data and making it available simpler. But then we also have to focus on, hey, how do we collect all this historical data and then make that accessible too? So I think, it's a industry problem. It's a worldwide problem. I think it's not just one group of people that has to take ownership of it. I think it's the controlling contractors for new construction need to be more diligent about providing quality as-builts and then getting those, to different sources like 4M to then distribute to the masses. And then it's also, the people that are out, the contractors that are, like AT&T and people that are disturbing the ground, like they've got to be a little more diligent of having a little better plan to just not just boring with no plan, right? So I think there's just a huge opportunity here for us to all come together and really digitize all this information.
Yeah, and sometimes it takes something really bad to happen to kind of change the way that you've been doing things. And what was it for you, Stuart, where you're like, these conventional methods just are no longer working anymore, that you just had this aha moment and you sought something different, thinking there must be a better solution out there?
I think it, I'm going to talk about our dig board here in a little bit, but we, our teams, I was talking through the process of how we get our information to an analog dig board, which is basically a board on a job site that shows existing utilities, and then that's where we make our plan for the day. And my team member was just explaining, like, yeah, we take the surveyor's information, we put that into CAD, we do some maybe some modeling or just connecting the dots, And then we're going to like send that to our team in India, and they're going to work on it. And we're going to take this Google Maps photo from, or this Google Maps image from 2 years ago, and we're going to do this overlay in Bluebeam, and then we're going to print this thing out. And I was just like, man, like this is just inefficient. Like, you know, we already have drone deploy. We already, you know, everything's digital these days. I was just like, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be an easier way to do this. So that's kind of where it started, is just, you know, we have a process. I'll talk about it in a little bit, but it was really just like, you know, when things are really hard for people and difficult, like they tend not to do them. So I was like, hey, how can we simplify this? How can we make it more real?
Mm. Yeah, and I'm expecting that this had maybe a little bit something to do with it too, this story in particular, that made you think, I wonder if there's something different out there that can help us from going back to this.
Yeah, so this is an interesting story. So we've been talking with you guys with 4M for a little while. One of my colleagues had kind of discovered you on the internet, and he's like, "Hey, it's 4M. Like maybe we should like take a look at them." And we looked, and it was we didn't quite understand what it was, and so we had this project over in Tampa for the University of South Florida, and you know, private property. You know, the as-builts they gave us, you know, on some PDFs that, you know, that we questioned the accuracy of them. Obviously they were incomplete. So we sent GPRS out there, and GPRS went and provided a pretty nice, I mean, so this is actually the GPRS data on the screen here, and, you know, fairly robust information, like located what we needed. But then where you see that dotted line, there's a small electrical line running from that generator back to the main on the road. We hit that line 3 times, and we had GPRS come out 3 times. They had trouble locating it. They couldn't locate it. There was a bunch of tree roots there, and I think they just were getting confused. And so it was just kind of like this, you know, our teams literally did the due diligence they needed to. They went with 811. They got the information. They got the as-builts from the team or from the owner. They called GPRS out. Like this is all part of our process. This was already in place. And then we just kept hitting this line. And yes, it was a small line on private property, but we're like, hey, like 4M, like, can you throw us a bone here and like just take a look at what you see? And so Taylor got back to me like, you know, maybe 2 days later, and he's like, hey, like, check this out. And he showed me some images, and he actually found some flagging in some Google Earth stuff from a couple years ago. And it's like, man, like if we would have had that, we probably would have at least been able to direct GPRS a little better, and then been like, okay, so we think there's something here for him, you know, maybe it's validated, maybe it's not, but at least we had a starting point. And then we could have been like, hey, GPRS, really focus on tracing this out. Is there another method of locating that we could do, you know, with an electrical trace or something? And I think we probably would have had a little better shot of finding it. So after we went through this, we've kind of kept the conversation up, and you know, we're going to talk about it here in a minute, but we got our first project with 4M going, and you know, we're already seeing the benefits.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you for that, Stuart. And I think kind of transitioning this now, it's talking more to the current state of not only just subsurface, what's below ground, but also the side from just the industry perspective, where we all know here, everybody that's attending is within the building space, whether you're on the engineering side or on more of the construction side, where building has never stopped, and I don't foresee it in the near future ever stopping, which is only just going to create for more complications as we progress into the future of what is beneath the ground, how cleanly is it, how good is the data that we actually have on what is beneath the ground today. So in kind of transitioning that now and talking more on the industry and some of the processes that are used, they're still within kind of the not so much archaic, but more of the manual boots on the ground is the only way of doing things, where yes, survey, all of this and all of these type of processes, they're required, they're essential. But what sort of value does it bring you, or does it provide for if you can have this information faster and in a much more comprehensible manner, where you're not having to deal with the time intensive processes of actually getting these teams out on site and the expense that comes with it. So being able to leverage technology to make better informed decisions in a faster manner on that front of it. And actually, Stuart, kind of a question for you, and you're good on the slide there, Chris. When it comes to just like the industry as a whole, and being that you've been on the technology side for a bit with DPR, obviously you started to see that bit of transition in the adoption. How would you approach a conversation with other construction executives, I guess, that maybe haven't really taken that step into leveraging things like AI or just technology just as a whole?
Yeah, I think I mean it's coming, it's inevitable. I think that's part of the reason I'm where I am in the industry is I see where this is headed. And you know, we're at a point now where you know, AI, you know, there's a lot of fear and question about it, but you know, trust but verify, right? So I think that the advice that I would give you know, companies is like we really just have to do our homework and do our due diligence to make sure that you know, we're putting the proper plans in place. We're eliminating those opportunities for mistakes and doing all that we can to, you know, specifically make sure that we're not, you know, hitting underground utilities. So not sure if I answered your question there, Taylor.
Yeah, definitely. And it seems like it's more of just a mindset shift, really, at the end of the day, of taking more proactive approaches to the reasons why you use technology is because you're getting information faster, you're getting it in a much easier manner, where the more reactive side is it's too late to be pulling technology in because something had already happened, kind of thing.
Yeah,
Where
well, I
I
mean,
think that,
you think
yeah,
about
go
it, if you invest, you know, $10,000 to do a robust, say, survey with 4M and GPRS and get your information straight before you start a project, and you don't
yeah,
hit a utility, right? Versus like, hey, you go hit a electrical line to a NICU, and you know, we're talking about babies, you know, not being okay, right? And like, yeah, it gets really interesting when you have a mistake, and you know, you're talking schedule delays and cost of repair, and really you're talking people's lives, you know. So you know, that cost isn't, you can't even quantify that cost, but you know, how much is your schedule worth? You know, how much is rework, right? So
exactly, exactly. And you actually kind of teed that up perfectly here, where I think talking about the when and the where in terms of where kind of 4M comes into play, it's where we fit in the process is it being that as early on in that life cycle as possible, where for your more engineering teams, you have your planning and design, as well as for more of the construction, your contractors, that first stage of construction where you don't have boots on the ground yet. And what this is really painting the picture on here is your different budget curves of more your planned and actual, where having visibility into any of those potential unknowns as early on as possible within that project's life cycle. What does that do from us setting the teams up for when they get on site? Are we then eliminating potential relocates? Are we mitigating delays, where all of this has the highest cost impact as possible at that stage of the life cycle, where uncovering this information much earlier on sets for a better project kickoff, but also just more visibility into the potential areas of risk. Like you talked about there, Stuart, where on that USF project, if maybe we reversed the way we kind of went about it, and you had came to us first, and then you had provided our imagery to GPRS, they could have maybe optimized that field investigation a bit better, uncovering that way earlier on than kind of when the push came to shove of actually striking the line itself. So really just reinforcing the why the 4M is being used so early on versus being reactive of if we hit something, what else may we not be, what else are we maybe missing, kind of thing.
absolutely.
Now, so that was the when and the where. Now the why, and I'm gonna give you the how as well later. So the why is really going back to the topic I mentioned earlier of manual processes, frequent trips out on site, where all of this it becomes redundant, it's painful, and there's a dollar amount to everything. Everybody's working out an hourly wage, excuse me. So if we have a way of being able to optimize some of these processes so your teams are working more efficient, what does that do for the project? Does it accelerate the planning and overall kickoff? So liberating those engineers and PMs so they can more prioritize and focus on other areas related to the project aside from just utility infrastructure within that specific area, or even more so to what you were talking about, Stuart, the mitigating risk, the uncovering those unknowns as early as possible to set the project up for as much success as we can in that early on place. Cool. Now let's talk about the how. So obviously we're going to show you guys kind of what things look like here. But I think it's really important to emphasize on kind of how we're going about doing this. How did we come about as a business? And I think the biggest thing to emphasize is we're a tech company where we leverage a lot of different types of kind of software buzzwords like artificial intelligence, object detection, where we've trained algorithms on our own algorithms, excuse me, on publicly available data, which allows for us to actually be able to create our own proprietary maps and synthesize this information down from millions and millions of different types of records. So some of you may be thinking, okay, what kind of records are we speaking? What are these sources? Some sources can be anywhere from like a public database like Dodge Data or Construct Connect, where RFPs are published, any kind of bidding, estimating documents, or it may be something like GIS servers or GIS layers, anything that's available on that front of it. Once we've collected this information and synthesized it down, there's a process of detection and validation that goes into play here. And I think this is a really important piece to emphasize and talk on because, like kind of Chris was talking about, like Stuart was mentioning, the inaccuracies in records that you're getting as field teams and just engineering firms is a very common occurrence. So what good would it be if we're providing you with just the records that are the same as what you're receiving from your owners? Kind of that garbage in, garbage out, where if we have the ability to actually be able to detect and validate that specific line work and information, we know we're setting you up for more success and more confidence on that specific locate of the facility. So how we're going about doing that is using things like object and change detection to actually use imagery to identify pothole, or not potholes, excuse me, manholes, or maybe gas mark or not gas marking, 811 markings through a specific area of that project 20 years ago, because we can use 70 years of historical imagery. So whether it be aerial imagery, Nexar car cameras, to identify any kind of evidence that triangulates to that line work actually being within that specific location. So really honing in on the confidence piece of what we're delivering. And then last but not least, it's the maintaining and updating, always keeping it up to date, because we're pre-mapping states where we're releasing states one every month, month and a half, as well as you can order data on demand. So keeping everything up to date as often as possible. So that way you're working off the most up-to-date information as well. Cool. Now transitioning here, Stuart, I'm going to kind of, I guess, put you on the hot seat for a sec here. Obviously, within your role on the innovation and kind of field technology side, your role is to provide them with the tools to obviously build safer, but also make more informed decisions based on the project KPIs. How would you say that you've seen that shift over the last years? Is it you've seen it more from the sense of there's a lot of pushback from teams, or is it where they need a taste of it to be able to go all in, kind of? What would you say on that front?
I think it's been quite a bit of a progression. I think a lot of it is based around like the adoption of the model and data and how we connect the field in the office, the digital and the real worlds. For us, it started with the robotic total station and taking CAD files efficiently into the field and laying out from them. And then from there, we started layering in laser scanning, drone imagery, orthomosaic maps, 360 images. And that just, it's really, kind of just like helped us connect the two together and made people realize that the model can be real. Is it real all the time? Like, no. Is a design model exactly what we're building at the end of the day? No. But it's getting closer and closer every day. And so just connecting the field and we have a process of laying out our work from the model and then checking it against the model with our tools like our total stations and our laser scanners. So that's how we've really kind of brought the model to the field and back again. And then really the big game changer is your phone, right? So where is this all headed? Like, the new iPhones the pros have LiDAR on them and GPS and everybody's got a phone in their pocket. And so like, it's just going to continue to get faster. And the more that we can do with these phones, I mean, Drone Deploy, we're piloting some beta products with them where you can do 3D scans and upload those to Drone Deploy. And, it's high fidelity data right out of anybody's phone that's in their pocket. So it's pretty interesting where this is all headed and, how we're going to continue to connect the field and the office, the digital and the real world.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny, just even in my time, just within the construction tech space, I've seen even the transition from our field teams are using flip phones to now not even hearing that in the slightest, where everybody is moving in that direction. And obviously from the technology side, everybody is web-based or have some sort of applications where you can actually leverage it out on site, which obviously you'll talk about with Drone Deploy as well shortly here, but I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. How many people have seen this happen? This is too many times for me. But yeah, we're saying this is every project's worst nightmare, right? You start digging, maybe you should have soft dig and you didn't, and you hit a water main, and now what do you got to do? You're shut down the road. You got to get the water team out. You got to repair it. It's a mess. So Just some quick facts and figures. So every year in the US, 2,000 injuries due to underground utility strikes, 400 deaths. We're talking 30 billion in societal impact. So, top to bottom, what does that mean? And then most of these, 3/4 of these strikes are really attributed to people not having good as-built and then not having a good process to locate the data. So pretty alarming figures if you think about it. A lot of opportunity for improvement. Let's say that.
Now, talking more specific, Stuart, this is one of the project that you had just kind of alluded to. Of the first one we kind of dipped our toe in the water with, the John Hopkins project. This is kind of more of a screenshot of what our deliverables do look like, where you can see here, this is more of a GIS layer where you have your vector line work. So you can see a handful of on-surface objects called out, your poles, your manholes. And then on the left side, you're going to have a analytics kind of dashboard section where you can use it for a couple different things, whether it be slicing and dicing the line work. Maybe you just want to see communications through your project area, or maybe you just want to see FPL's line work going through your specific area. You kind of have the freedom and capability to slice and dice it as you see fit, as well as the ability to export. So Chris, if you hit to the next slide, one thing that we do, actually that works as well. I can talk about those if you want. In addition, you see kind of like I talked about this line work being vector lines. When actually clicking on the line work itself, you'll have that metadata from utility owners, sectors, elevation, material types, as well as on the on-surface object side of everything. A new update we just released where you can actually see the direct image of it. And because we have Street View embedded into the platform, you can directly hop right into that specific area and see that manhole or that pole or whatever that object was that we had detected. Thank you, Chris. Now kind of speaking on like the partnership and how we partner and go about like our deliverables. So actually, funny enough, I guess it was on Tuesday, we had sat down with Stuart and some of the DPR team. This is a typical process of kind of how we deliver our deliverables and maps, of walking through the specific map with actual evidence and imagery to kind of highlight the areas that maybe we had moved a line because we saw something on surface, or maybe we added an additional line. So really honing in on, hey, this is what we put together. This is everything that we had found within this specific project area on that front of it. Stay here, Chris. Throwing a couple questions to you, Stuart. So obviously getting to this level with 4M requires 14 business days on the high side to turn this around for you. We had built this or put this deliverable together in 12 days. Thinking about now in tangent, what the process would be like originally to get to this. Any kind of, do you mind elaborating a bit or shedding some light on what is kind of this two side by side and how do they compare from a process perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. Just thinking through what this project is, we're not going to start for probably another month or two with construction. So first of all, having this data now is invaluable. For us to collect this data, what we probably would have done was we would have called up 811. We did get some as-builts from the hospital, which I've started looking at. I'll talk about in a second. We would have probably sent a PE. We would have put this as his task or his or her task. We would have been like, hey, go gather all the information you can. Let's put it all into Bluebeam. Let's do some overlays and let's see what we've got. And I can guarantee you they wouldn't have found half of this information. It wouldn't have been as accurate. It would have been a bunch of PDFs or hand-drawn sketches compiled on top of each other. And I don't know how efficient it would have been for us to actually use. It would probably have taken weeks really for this to come together. We wouldn't have never even come close to getting this fidelity of a product. And just talking through like maybe this versus like the quality of this deliverable, the advanced versus the basic and versus the as-builts that we had. It's just really interesting to see how all the lines do shift a little bit. I mean, there was a gas line that
Chris, go to the next one, Chris.
Yeah, so yeah, the gas line is in a totally different spot. So and that's, gas lines, water lines, electrical, those are as critical as it gets, right? And so just us being able to like have a little more confidence of where that is, and then just thinking through, like, I feel more comfortable in the projects, like right now, just looking at that advanced map and just like, I mean, we're not done there. We're going to send GPRS out. We're going to have them focus on some certain areas, specifically on that left side of the page and that parking lot where we're doing the expansion. And, there's still some investigation to do, but personally, I feel a lot better already just seeing that information, because we're months out. We can start making some decisions. We can start doing some planning, start, thinking with our superintendents of like, what are we going to have to shut down? What are the systems that are going to be affected? What's that plan look like now? And so we're like you were saying earlier about being reactive. We're being active right now.
Yeah.
And when you're active, you're spending money up front, but you're saving it on the back end.
And I think that's the most important thing. And like you see in a lot of these images, we're providing you with the screenshots of, you can see at the bottom the date stamp. You have Google Street View 2023. I think the next one is a 2013 image. So really leveraging that historical analysis that we're able to do to just hone more in on the confidence side of things. And kind of wrapping a bow on that, Stuart, how does this then change your approach and kind of the project kickoff piece of this? Having this as kind of, this is the first step, how does that change versus the old approach, I guess?
Well, it really gets back. So when we were talking about that graph of the construction life cycle you showed, we call it getting left of the line, and left of the line is construction. So construction's the line, and left of the line is the planning part. So for my group, honestly, this is a huge opportunity to go ahead and get data and validate it. And then, I'm going to share a little bit later about how we get this into drone deploy, but just giving us the ability to just consume this a lot quicker. And then selfishly for my group, get us on site sooner, get us contributing, get us engaged with the project team to start digesting digital deliverables, so that we can contribute more to the project. So, if I had it my way, we'd be doing this on every DPR job. It's that necessary, and it's really saving us that much time and effort for just knowing what's under our feet. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, I think that's the most important part about it. And I think the last area I may have you shed some light on before moving on is, obviously you're within the tech space. From an innovation side of things, you have your hands on a lot of different software. So you've gone through a lot of different implementations, where most software implementations can take, if you're lucky, a month to, on the high side, 6 months until it's kind of rolled out, teams are actually using it. Do you mind shedding light into the experience of, I'm going to log into 4M and I'm going to order data, and kind of how the tool is used?
Yeah, it was super simple. It was like, I got on there. I mean, initially for the initial data, like Florida's live now. So, I had some credits from the free trial. So I got in there, I drew the box around the project site, and I literally watched as it populated over about 15 seconds. And so it was so simple. It was easy. It gave me that confidence of like, wow, like, this isn't like, oh, like back when we were kids and you'd like send away for something and then you'd hope it would come back later, right? This was like, oh my God, it's literally in real time. So super simple. And then as soon as I ordered it, Taylor and I are on the phone and he's explaining it to me, going over it. And then when we got the advanced layer, yeah, you guys beat your target by a few days, which was great. Just honestly, the follow through on Tuesday, like I thought I knew what I was looking at before, but then going over it with you and Stephanie, like it just really hit it home of like, wow, like this is real, like it's simple, it's easy. And now it's like, oh, I can just take this, export it, and I can, bring it into drone deploy now, and we can start consuming it. So yeah, super easy and really fun to work with you guys.
Now, I think this is the perfect transition here. So we talked about kind of the 4M side of things, really as early on as possible within the life cycle, receiving our data, and then now comes the active construction, constant as-builting, and how is the team kind of tracking that? So from here, I'll hand this off Andrew and Stuart to speak more on the drone deploy side.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Taylor, and super good setting that up. On the left side, you have 4M helping with the early planning and investigation side of the house, and just kind of tying this all together, you can really see how these systems begin to converge and add value on top of one another. At Drone Deploy, what we really do is we process that data from the current job site, as Stuart was mentioning, once execution starts happening in the field. And customers will use that data to monitor and maintain the site once construction gets started. So, starting in the office, doing that early planning and research, validating it from there, using GPRS and all those things, and then executing that strategy for managing and monitoring that throughout the process. The key behind that is consistent capture, and Stuart and his team have done a really good job kind of establishing that, and that's a really important part of this as well. But you can do this throughout the project lifecycle, which is really key. We're obviously talking about early days here, but this is something where you start off with the green field. Now you're laying out site utilities, you're putting the structure up, you're closing everything out and handing it off to the owner. All those changes that you need to track along the way, you can use Drone Deploy to reliably get all those up-to-date conditions. So just following this process, what teams are really able to do is document exactly what's in the ground before everything gets closed up, using the intelligence that's gathered earlier. And then 5 months later, a week later, whenever that is, whenever a question comes up, you're not wasting time going back and forth guessing or disputing where something is. It's just there. Everyone can see it. Everyone can look at it. It's always up to date as useful, and useful as long as you're capturing consistently. So as you can probably tell, the analog way that Stuart was kind of overviewing earlier, there's just no way that it can keep up with this level of activity going on the site. It's outdated by the time anyone can even use it, right? So just looking at these examples in GIF form, where now you're actually going out and you're capturing this. Just a few visuals of 4M in the office. Again, you have DPR doing their homework, validating everything in the field, getting coordinates aligned, and then just capturing as often as possible to eventually be consumed as as-built in Drone Deploy, which Stuart's going to go over in just a few minutes here. And again, just not to sound like a broken record on top of these gentlemen, but the theme here is being proactive versus reactive and just waiting for something to happen, right? Starting as early as possible to get that data, having a plan for what that regular capture is going to be, and who's going to be your champions and enforcers actually championing this, and then knowing what you want to capture. So that's done right. So just by following that, Stuart and his team have done a really spectacular job of just kind of setting an example on that front. So I'm going to kind of try to move quickly here, a couple quick minutes on Drone Deploy. We are the leading reality capture platform, which at this point means way more than just drones. We've seen the industry evolve quite a lot over certainly my 6.5 years here, and now it's drones, it's 360 cameras, LiDAR scans as mentioned earlier, even a fixed camera if you want to put a live feed that you can use to view the site. Our goal in our charter is really to make it easy for our customers to capture, process real-time site data, analyze it very quickly, or even share it out to anyone who needs to get a hold of it, essentially. Just to give you a sense of what you're looking at here, you have work happening every day. You got Stuart and his team capturing the site with drones. They're walking it with 360 cameras. They're uploading it to our software, and very quickly they're getting very accurate orthomosaic maps, 3D models that they can analyze, annotates, all the complex changes that Stuart and his group are trying to manage around site. This just does a really good job of sharing and updating everyone and connecting teams on what's happening, no matter where they are, both kind of at that macro level, but also on a micro level. Well, whether you're a VEC manager, a superintendent, or an owner, this is going to apply to your day-to-day. Our goal is to get all of that data in one place where nothing gets lost. Everything is where you expect it to be. And if you need to take it out and put it in a project management system like a Procore or an Autodesk, we can do that as well. And then next slide, Chris. Just a couple of ROI points and how do projects actually benefit? Because a picture is worth 1,000 words, as we all know, but we've also evolved way past that. The complexity of workflows and problems that DPR and other customers are solving is really impressive to see. Starting with safety, of course, and that's really at the heart of what today is all about, is having people get home at the end of the day, whether it's knowing what's below their feet, but many more examples of that, of what you can do in our platform. You can avoid, putting someone on a high swing stage and doing facade inspections and QA/QCs, or just avoiding going to a hazardous area, putting your workers in places where they're not going to be in danger, and also allowing them to focus on the bigger and better challenges. That's just really what it's all about at the end of the day, but also driving those things forward as well. Staying on top of the schedule, under the budget, getting ahead of delays by spotting things a little more proactively. So we see that a lot, for instance, in the earth moving process. A lot of dirt is being moved, it's being tracked, and you're trying to hold your subcontractors accountable on how much is moving and whether or not you have enough trucks to make it to the next phase. Those things all have a direct impact on the P&L. So again, just not causing huge delays or stoppages by getting ahead of anything that needs to get ahead of. That's what it's all about. And you can do that by helping teams remotely collaborate as well. So we've reduced, saving someone a trip across the country to a site, or even saving someone a trip from the job trailer, 15 minutes walking over to the other end of the site. Here they can just click on it and look at it in Drone Deploy, reducing rework and impressing your clients with some of these real-time deliverables. It's all about making people more efficient, more safer, and saving time at the end of the day. So just tying that all in with kind of 4M and what Stuart's doing, we're just trying to create an environment that is fostering better collaboration and real-time insights to stay up to date with what's going on your site so that everyone can be informed, focus on the right thing, and make better decisions is what it's all about here. So I think Stuart's going to walk through how this actually works.
Yeah, so digital dig board, new concept we got rolling, and I'm just going to set the stage with what we had and kind of where we've gone with this. So you can go ahead and move to the next slide, Chris. So it starts with an analog dig board. So this is our previous existing process. Great process. We post this on our job sites on a 4x8 foot wooden board. It sits out in the field. We post the analog map with the overlays and then actually pin our information there. Good process. Great for communication and information. Not great for real-time collaboration. So what did we do? We digitized it. So we're going to show a video now of setting the stage. So how did we get to our digital dig board? 3 goals: go digital, continue to connect the field and office a little more, and then how do we make sure that our project team members are accountable and using the dig board properly to ensure we don't have strikes. So we're just going to walk through this little video here. So this is a demo on site. So we have a touchscreen monitor. You can buy it on Amazon for $900. It's literally live on Drone Deploy, and you can go day to day, week to week. But the real value here is 2 things. We're using it to track our dig permitting process. So literally we upload the dig permit and sign off on it. So a DPR representative signs off on the dig permit. We congregate around this in the morning, talk through what's going to happen during the day. And instead of this just being on a board out in the field, it's digital, it's everywhere. It's on the phone, it's on the tablet, it's on the web platform, it's here on the touch screen. And it's easily accessible to anyone. You can walk out in the field, you can click on your information, you can realize what it is. And how did we get here? So we actually, all these lines, this is GPRS data, as well as us as-builting. We flew the drone every single day during underground construction. And it's a simple process. We're using the annotation tool, maybe not what it's supposed to be used for, but hey, we found another use for it. And we're literally drawing over the top of these utilities to ensure that we have them captured. It takes 5 minutes, literally. So we're going from the field to the office and back to the field in less than 24 hours. So pretty efficient process. Is it 100% accurate? No, but we have validated it with total station data, and we're within an inch or two. So for us, when we have to have a 5-foot clearance around anything in soft dig, it's great. It works just perfectly. Another thing that we've done is we've continued to democratize the data on site. So we have QR codes posted up in different spots. And literally, we're able to hit play, Chris. Literally able to go out there, scan the QR codes. Anybody on site, project manager, superintendent, craft guys can go out there. So I'm just kind of walking around the site. You can go out there, scan the QR code. You have access to the web version of the platform. If you've got the app installed, it pulls it right up. But even just using the web platform, it comes right up. And here we go again, using something maybe it wasn't designed for, but we were like, hey, we had this shift of focus. This is a big thing for us of why won't this work to how will this work? And when we had that shift of focus, that's when we really started putting it all together. So you can see the blue dot, that's me, that's accurate to within maybe a foot or so. And I'm literally walking around the job site with the phone in my hand. And just, hey, what's underneath my feet? Like, that's what we've literally provided is to anybody that's on site, they can pull open the app and literally understand what's under their feet. So it's really just increased, the field to office connection, and then just the safety factor and the comfortability of our trades, our guys in the field, the men and women that are doing all the hard, dangerous work. They're able to have some form of security to understand, hey, what's under our feet. Should I ask my supervisor if I should be digging here? The answer is yes, right? We should be soft digging, and we should do it with supervision, and we should make sure we're being safe. So, yeah, pretty interesting tool. So, we just kind of started messing with this process here. It's very simple to get the 4M data into Drone Deploy. So you can, with the advanced layer, you can literally download the CAD file. Bring it into Civil 3D. I just had to do a little bit of cleanup with some of the line types and just getting rid of some of the background information. But then as long as you export in the correct EPSG code that matches what's in Drone Deploy, you can literally go into Drone Deploy, upload it as a DXF, and it comes right into place. So seamless process. You can do the same for GPRS data. And it's just been awesome working with Drone Deploy. They've really accepted a lot more file types recently, and they're continuing to do that. And it's just it's simple. It's easy.
Yeah, and just along those lines, a quick surprise for you on the on the webinar, Stuart. Pretty soon, or by the end of the year, you'll be able to put those 2D DXFs right in there and skip that fourth step entirely. So just trying to make you even
Awesome.
more just evolve in the process as well. So going straight into 2D and start looking.
Cool. I'm excited. So we're just going to briefly talk through the 3 different ways that we're as-builting right now with Drone Deploy on our projects. So the first one is, like I said before, we're literally just taking the annotation tool and drawing over the top of the exposed pipes. And this is just simply an efficient way to get this data, like I said, from the field to the office and back to the field again. We validated it. If you go to the next slide. So we've able to validate that with, this is actually total station data from our surveyor. So what was really cool was the first time we brought this in, the drone data and this data lined up perfectly. So that was a huge win for us because we were like, okay, we can do this. We can use drone imagery to as built. And it kind of was a game changer for us, to be honest. The next level is Drone Deploy will now take IFCs and DXFs, like I said before. So we've been able to export that RTS and that drone data, take it into Civil 3D, and then do some basic pipe modeling, and then bring that back into Drone Deploy. So pretty cool stuff. So how do we make this work? We've simplified a process from, like I said before, sending the data overseas to then get modeled to come back to do these overlays, from maybe a team of 4 or 5 people to a team of 2. So Andrew mentioned the champion before. So that's Barath. He's my go-to guy out there. He's our Part 107 pilot, and he's in charge of all our VDC coordination. So Barath does a great job of wearing multiple hats on the job site. He manages the platform, all the permissions, keeps the annotations updated, make sure the maps align properly. He's doing flights, probably twice a week now. But he's the champ. He's really the guy that's making it all happen. And then Nick's our enforcer. So Nick's my partner in crime we do a lot of presentations together. He's the boots on the ground superintendent out there, making sure that everybody's using the platform and, making sure that we're getting our dig permits in there, getting them signed off, and just keeping everybody accountable. That's where that project accountability comes in. So these are kind of the keys to success, right? So you got to get the whole team to buy in, right? So it's not just the GC team, it's the trade partners, it's anybody that comes on site. It's a part of our orientation. You learn about the dig board, you get your Drone Deploy login. They may even take you over to the touchscreen, show you what it is. We committed to the process. We've had hiccups. We have had a strike on that job, but it can actually be attributed to not following our dig permit process. So the process works. So keep going, like just keep committing to what you're doing, build in those redundancies. So having some quality checks every once in a while, getting a total station or GPS out there is super important. You can capture with an RTK drone and or GCPs. Either will work, but you got to make sure that data, those drone maps from day to day are tight. So that's why we're saying capture with control, and just go fly like every day if you can. Like just go do it. It'll pay off, I promise. And so what does this really mean? Is it all worth it? Like we've created a safer work environment for all our people. They feel more comfortable. They're more informed. We're collecting as-built as we go, and they are accurate. At the end of the day, we're going to turn this over to our client, and it's going to be unlike anything that they've ever had before. So we're pretty excited about that. Our owner is constantly on there checking on what's going on. We've got architects and engineers. We got over 100 people in this, $30-40 million job looking at it all the time. And they just love working with Drone Deploy and seeing what's going on. We've really increased the field to office communication. People are using the data. Like we're finding new ways every day to use, what we've captured. And, it's been an awesome way to get the 2 sides talking to each other. We've held everybody accountable. Like I said, we had some mistakes, but we've been able to have conclusions because they didn't follow processes. So that's a huge win. Nick's job has become easier because he's been able to really focus on some of the more important things instead of making sure processes are going to get completed. He's got actionable data that he can trust. So it's made his life a lot easier. Drone Deploy is super easy to work through. They've got all kinds of great tutorials, and the Drone Deploy Academy is awesome. I send all my guys through that. And that's just a database of how to use the platform and how to get better data. So that's been great. And really, what does it all come down to? We've fostered a culture of better decision-making on the project. So it's been amazing.
Great. Thanks so much, Stuart. It's a couple minutes from the top of the hour here, so I want to be cognizant of everybody's everybody's time. I just dropped a link in the chat. If you do want to kick the tires with 4M, we are offering 3 free foundation utility maps with object detection. It's super simple. You just log in, create a project, and start mapping the project area that you want today. Just click on that link that I dropped in the chat there. Just go to 4manalytics.com. Without further ado, I promised we would leave some time for some Q&A. Let me stop sharing my screen here, and I'm kind of playing moderator, doing a little bit of everything right now. So let's see if we got any questions that came in. I think this question would go to Taylor. How does 4M prevent duplicate and inaccurate information?
Oh, sorry, I was muted there. Great question. So we have a process on our back end from kind of both combining engineering logic with a ranking system that actually allows for us to identify the best record based on that engineering logic and what we program kind of our algorithms into, where we will then remove records that would have duplicates or anything that isn't related to what should be in that deliverable.
Thank you, Taylor. Andrew, this one is for you, it looks like. What are some other ways you can use drone deploy?
Ooh, that is a great question. There are several ways that we could use drone deploy, and I know we're sort of closing in on time here. But talking earlier about the whole life cycle of construction and thinking about where some of this as-built data would be valuable. Logistical planning is a really big one. I've seen customers just have it up in their daily standing meetings, understand where they're going to lay down materials, direct visitors who will, spend 10 minutes getting lost somewhere if they take a wrong turn. Counting and inventory work is a big one. How many cars can our parking lot hold? Are we going to need to, do we have enough materials to finish this phase of earth moving, or do we need to call in more trucks? And, a lot of AI as well to keep folks safe. We have a new safety AI product where folks are walking their sites with 360 cameras, and then we'll proactively spot safety hazards and risks that pertain to specific OSHA violations. So if someone isn't wearing PPE, we'll find that too. And just a lot of disputes and kind of covering your bases type of activities for, especially where you get a lot of disputes, things are behind the wall, things are covered up. It's just a really objective way to communicate around the data, save money, and just make your sites overall safer. So that was the 2-minute version, but many different use cases that either Stuart or myself can expand on.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Andrew. It looks like we're at the top of the hour here. Another question came in, they missed the beginning of the webinar. No worries, it's recorded, so you'll be able to binge it, watch it 500 times if you want. It's will be sent out probably tomorrow or early next week, so no worries on that. I want to first and foremost thank everybody that joined me today, the experts on the call, Andrew, Taylor, Stuart. You guys were awesome. I hope everybody found this as valuable as I did. Thank you so much for being here. We're really excited to hopefully have you guys join us on the next live session. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris. Good job.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks,
Andrew.